Today's show is brought to you by our title sponsors, Spitch, one of the leading and up-and-coming football fantasy games across Europe, covering a breadth of football, including the Premier League, the Bundesliga, Championship, and, of course, the Champions League, where you can pick and enter your teams for free ahead of the Champions League games this week. Make sure you sign up and download their app using the link in our description below. Go and check it out. Absolutely fantastic. You can actually win money for free. It's brilliant. It absolutely is. Now, Lukaku has been such a major talking point at Chelsea now since he's re-signed for them back in the summer. Lots of talk about how he was going to be, and I was one of these people. Let me just say this. He was going to be the finishing piece of the jigsaw. He was going to put the chances away. And it wasn't the fact that at Chelsea last year, sometimes you've got to take stats and you've got to take the eye test and put them together. They're often creating chances which statistically weren't counting as chances. Lots of excellent through balls and crosses that nobody was getting onto the end of. And you could put the best pass into the box. If a shot isn't met at the end of that cross or pass, it doesn't count as a chance created. But in actuality, it was a chance. So we all felt a goal poacher and a good one-on-one striker, good finisher like Lukaku, would help to be that final piece of the jigsaw. Kai Havertz hadn't really hit the heights that Chelsea fans wanted, but he was young. Werner just misses too many opportunities. Lukaku's the guy to come in. And it just hasn't quite worked out. It just hasn't quite gone exactly how Chelsea would want it to. I think we've all kind of seen that and we're all kind of aware of this. Now, we saw over the course of the weekend, Lukaku going missing, touching the ball. It says here 6 times. I read it was 7, but 6 or 7 was the real difference. What Sammy McBell here has said is that he needs to feel love to thrive at Chelsea. But any lingering resentment from his infamous interview may be unsettling him. And what I find intriguing about that is the way the title reads is almost sympathetic towards Lukaku. And it really shouldn't be. This is an interesting point made just down here that Lukaku's sort of form and attitude must now be seriously worrying to Thomas Tuchel. Now, when you go through the article in its entirety, Chelsea looking towards another striker could seriously happen. Lukaku doesn't look himself. Lukaku doesn't look happy. Lukaku doesn't look involved. Now, some Chelsea fans, we had Monstar on a space yesterday, feel that it's more the system and it's how the team's playing that's creating the problem. And what's very, very intriguing about that is we kind of predicted that's what some Chelsea fans would go with after Lukaku's infamous interview. There's almost this seed that's been planted that it's the way Chelsea play football that isn't getting the best out of Lukaku, rather than Lukaku being a bad egg, bad attitude, lazy, or just simply not good enough for the team. But what's intriguing to me is this. It's still a Lukaku issue. You shouldn't change a whole system and style of play because one individual can't produce in it. That for me is, I don't like using the word backwards, but it's a backwards way of thinking. Why should Thomas Tuchel and the whole Chelsea system, that by the way works very, very well, why should they change for Lukaku? Now, you could argue that none of the attacking players are really delivering to a very high standard. Maybe that's them. Like Timo Werner, the only thing he hasn't been able to do is put the ball in the back of the net. Every other element of his game has been pretty good. Kai Havertz, nicknamed Shy Havertz, I just don't know if he's ready yet for the Premier League. He's been here 18 months. He just looks too safe. He just looks a little bit reserved in what he's doing. But when he's fit, Mason Mount delivers in this system. Hakim Ziyech has started to come alive. I think Christian Pulisic would deliver if he wasn't always injured. I think Chelsea's problem up front, and even as a neutral, I'm guilty of this. I think we've overhyped certain players within that team and squad. I think Lukaku's form in Italy rewrote history. We forgot all the negative elements of his play when he was at Man United. His hold-up play is sometimes awful. And I'm talking elite end of the spectrum here. Of course, you'll see good touches, good runs, good bits of build-up play, some good crosses into the box. He is a top-class striker. We're talking inches here. We're talking elite-level inches. And the difference between the Lewandowskis, the Harry Kanes, the peak Luis Suarez's as footballers, I'm talking here, and Lukaku is massive. He isn't as good a football player as them. Lukaku reminds me more of the Ian Wright, Alan Shearer, Michael Owen generation. Good footballers, exceptional finishers and strikers. But football has evolved. Even goalkeepers have to be good to very good footballers now to be able to cope in a lot of the modern day systems, which are machine-like, which are so prescribed, and the right back has a specific role. The central midfielder specific. There's very little freedom anymore. You have to be able to almost have 2 or 3 strings to your bow. And when you look at Lukaku, finishing's not a problem for him, really. It's the rest of the play. You look at Callum Hudson-Odoi, someone I'm very fond of. He has all the things that Lukaku needs. But when it comes to the right cross or the right finish especially, it isn't always quite there. Kai Havertz, I don't really know with him. You know, the mad thing is he scored 2 of the most clutch and important goals of Thomas Tuchel's reign. Outside of that, very, very little from him at all. And when you think of the size of the guy and everything, you know, as a specimen of an athlete, there should be a little bit more from him. I think this is more of a personnel issue than a Thomas Tuchel issue, but it's going to be intriguing to see how this kind of gets pushed and pulled and what Chelsea fans have got to say. I get the feeling, I still get this feeling that Tuchel could end up being the victim of this in terms of he'll be the guy that people slowly start to turn on. If the League Cup final isn't won, if the Champions League ends at, say, quarters or semis, of course there's no title race for them now. They're out of that. Will Lukaku's interview come back to bite Thomas Tuchel? If you are back in Tuchel, what needs to happen? Goes on in the article here, it says that the likes of Haaland, Mbappe, Harry Kane are obtainable this summer. Of course, I actually don't know why they've mentioned Mbappe's name. I don't think he is. It would be negligent of Chelsea not to consider other options if Lukaku continues to stutter. And I think look, Sam McBell is a very credible journalist. There's no doubt about it. And he hasn't said here that Chelsea are 100% out there in the market trying to sign someone. But I believe they are looking, or they've started having conversations. Because Chelsea Football Club, if the other reports are to be true that Roman is going to back Thomas Tuchel no matter what, you can't continue with Lukaku. My opinion, you ain't going to see Lukaku. Lukaku will have some patches of form where he starts scoring goals again. But Lukaku's never going to be that guy. Lukaku is never going to be Drogba. He's never going to be Costa. He's never going to be peak. I'm talking, it's not just Chelsea strikers. He's not going to be peak Fernando Torres. He isn't going to be Wayne Rooney. He isn't going to be Luis Suarez. He isn't going to be Ronaldo or Messi. He's never going to be Karim Benzema. He just isn't on the same technical level as those individuals. And I think what Lukaku has highlighted in this Chelsea team is they need to find, and maybe bring in someone like Broja back is an example of this where it could work. They need to find a technically proficient striker who can also put the ball in the back of the net. They need to marry up Hudson-Odoi and Lukaku in one. They need to marry up elements of Werner and Lukaku in one. That's what they need. Who is available out there? Well, I'd say Haaland's there. Harry Kane could be available for the right kind of money. People will go, nah, no way would they do the bit. It might cost you a pretty penny. The one thing you've got to say, though, is this. Where it's going to be hard is that Chelsea are going to get nowhere near the 95 to 100 million they paid for Lukaku. No one inside a year is going to pay that kind of money. They will have to take a colossal loss on this player. A huge loss. Maybe the train of thought is we can bring in Broja and another striker and Lukaku becomes second fiddle. The problem is with Lukaku becoming second fiddle is he can become a problem. We saw that at Manchester United. Could the same happen this time round? Look, Chelsea fans, I want your thoughts and I want your feelings on this. More and more stories, more and more reports. Again, off the back of this poor, disappointing performance for Lukaku, that is starting to become more of a worry and more of a problem at Stamford Bridge. I want your thoughts. I do want your feelings on that. I want your comments in the section below. Big shout out to our title sponsors again. Spitch, one of the best up-and-coming football fantasy games in the market. Go and get yourself signed up right about now using my exclusive link in the comments below. Until next time, take care, goodbye, God bless, and we'll see you